My mother's best friend slipped up at Christmas dinner and mentioned life before my adoption. I'm 27 years old. Nobody ever told me I was adopted. Then I found out why they kept it secret. The words came out between sips of wine like they meant nothing at all. Oh, your mother was so different before the adoption. More carefree, I think. I set down my fork. What adoption? My mother's best friend Pauline froze with her glass halfway to her lips. Her eyes darted to my mother across the table. The entire dining room went quiet. My father stopped carving the ham. My older brother Jonah suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. What adoption? I repeated. My mother forced a laugh. Pauline's confused. Honey, she's thinking of someone else's family. But Pauline's face told a different story. She looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Her hands were shaking so badly. I'm 27 years old. I have my mother's nose and my father's chin. At least that's what everyone always told me. Mom, I said slowly. Am I adopted? The silence stretched so long I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Finally, my father cleared his throat. We were going to tell you when you were older. I'm 27. When you are ready then. I looked around the table at my family. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My brother was still staring at his plate. Who are my real parents? That question changed everything. My mother started crying. She threw her napkin on the table and stormed out of the room. My father followed her. My brother finally looked up. You shouldn't have pushed, Willa. Some things are better left alone. I spent that night in my childhood bedroom unable to sleep. The next morning, I started digging. It took me 3 weeks to find the adoption records. My biological mother was a woman named Sandra Keene who died in childbirth. My biological father was listed as unknown, but the adoption paperwork had a witness signature that made my blood run cold. Pauline Barker, my mother's best friend. The same woman who'd slipped up at Christmas dinner. I drove to Pauline's house on a Saturday morning. She answered the door looking like she'd aged 10 years since Christmas. I found the paperwork, I said. You witnessed the adoption. You knew this whole time. She let me inside without a word. We sat in her living room while she told me the truth. Sandra Keene wasn't a stranger. She was my mother's younger sister. My biological mother was my aunt. Sandra got pregnant at 19. The father was a married man who wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. My grandparents were horrified. They told Sandra she had to give the baby up for adoption, or they'd disown her completely. My mother offered to adopt me. She'd been trying to have children for years without success. Sandra agreed, thinking she'd still get to watch her daughter grow up, just as an aunt instead of a mother. But Sandra died during delivery, and after she was gone, my mother made a decision. She erased Sandra completely. Every photo of Sandra was removed from family albums. Her name was never spoken. My grandparents went along with it, too grief-stricken to argue. Pauline kept the secret because my mother threatened to end their friendship if she ever breathed a word. For 27 years, I thought I was an only child with a small, quiet family. I never knew I had an aunt who died giving birth to me. I never knew my mother was actually my aunt. I never knew my grandparents carried that grief to their graves. I didn't confront my mother right away. Instead, I requested my grandmother's photo albums from storage. The ones my mother said were lost in a flood years ago. They weren't lost. They were in my mother's attic. I found pictures of Sandra everywhere. Birthday parties, graduations, family vacations. There were even photos of Sandra pregnant. One hand on her belly, smiling at the camera. On the back of one photo, my grandmother's handwriting read, Sandra and baby Willa, 3 weeks before the due date. I brought the albums to Easter dinner. I set them on the table before anyone could sit down. My mother's face went white. Where did you find those? Your attic. Next to the box of Sandra's letters. The ones where she writes about how excited she is to be a mother. The ones where she talks about naming me after grandmother Wilhelmina. My father stood up. Willa, this isn't the time. It's been 27 years, I said. When exactly is the time? I looked at my mother. You didn't just adopt me. You erased my real mother. You took her photos, her letters, her entire existence, and you hid them so I'd never know she loved me. My mother started crying again. I did it to protect you. You did it to protect yourself, because you didn't want me asking questions. You didn't want me knowing where I came from. I took the photo albums with me when I left. I've since made copies and framed the best ones of Sandra. She hangs in my apartment now. A mother I'll never meet but finally knew existed. Pauline visits me sometimes. She tells me stories about Sandra, how she laughed, what music she loved, how badly she wanted to be my mother. Not secrets, just the truth.